event outside and you could have had pizza, but you chose to come see me, and I appreciate it. Do I have a remote for the slides? Anyway, I had this controversy while I was on the hallway because people saw Bitcoin Magazine and they were like, wait, are you working for Bitcoin Magazine? And the answer is no, I haven't written for them since 2020. But I hope they're not going to sue an open source project for trademark infringement. So David Bailey, if you're watching this, sorry, but it's harder to say magazine about Bitcoin or magazine on the topic about Bitcoin, and you can say Cars Magazine or you can say Horse Magazine, but you should not, own Bitcoin Magazine as an expression. But what I'm going to talk about today is a project which I started a year ago. I started working on this on January 2019. I called it the Bitcoin Takeover Project, and I started with the podcast, but my main job was to write. So basically, I considered putting my articles into something which is tangible and something that people can bring to meetups, to conferences, and they can enjoy reading in their own leisure. And a big reason why I chose to write a magazine as opposed to a book is the commitment that's required. As in the case of a book, you have to read from one chapter to the other, and there needs to be some sort of continuity. Whereas in the case of a magazine, you can pick it up anytime, you can put it on your coffee table, you can read one article, you can pass it on to somebody else, you have pictures that make it look nice. And yeah, I guess I foreshadowed some of my slides, but I don't want to hold you for too long because I know that the pizza is tasty, and there's also the Satoshi's Vision version of the pizza, which I highly recommend. So I first launched in July 2021 the first magazine. It was not this one because this is the 2022 edition. Oh, what did I do? You're also pressing. Okay, I start from scratch. And I wrote a lot of articles, I put them all in one magazine, and I decided to make it open source. And it sounds counterintuitive because it's kind of like a dictatorship here. There's only one guy writing all the articles, and it's open source. How does that even work? But I wanted my work to be able to get published and get edited, and anyone who organizes a meetup or a conference can take an educational material, which is free and has no trademark, as there are lots of magazines about Bitcoin out there, but they have all of these copyrights and all of these legal issues that need to be sorted out before someone prints them or gets them for an event. And I don't want there to be like a high cost involved. If you want to print a copy which is worth like $5, but very cheap paper, you can do that, and it's up to you. This one, for example, which they have customized for this occasion, for Pizza Day, I think it cost them like
308 rounds.
Yeah. It cost them like, what's that, $15 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like that. It cost them like a lot of money to print in this quality. And I actually dropped this. So they were able to produce something of higher quality because they wanted. But if somebody from Africa or from South America wants to produce a copy to educate someone at a meetup, they can do it for a lot cheaper. And also you can find the free PDF on the website. It's bitcointakeover.com or BTCTKVR, as you can see on my t-shirt. There's a magazine section and you can download it for free. There's a GitHub repository where you can find all the files, and you can pick whatever you like and build your own copy. You can even sell it and make money off of it. I don't care. I don't mind. You can start a business and basically, jumpstart some sort of media empire out of my work. I honestly don't care, as long as, people read my work and I get credit for it. That's how I operate. It's more about the content. And it's using the Creative Commons 1.0 license, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can add your own work on top of mine, even though, I personally would not like it to have this lack of consistency in styles, but you can do that. So you're free to do whatever. And I've given away more than 300 printed magazines to people in the last year. Thanks to sponsors, I took money from sponsors who have full ad pages in the magazine. This was the trade-off that I accepted. In order for me to produce these and give them to people so that they get to experience what it's like to have a magazine and read articles and maybe pass them on, I took money from sponsors. You're free to remove the sponsored pages from the free open source magazine in the GitHub repository. You can add your own if you start to print. So I guess that's how it works. In 2021, I gave away free copies at the Mallorca Blockchain Days conference, the Atlanta Bitcoin conference, and I'm very proud of that because I was able to get a copy to Peter Willey and also to Jimmy Song, and I think it was Seed Signer, the guy who does the DIY hardware wallet. And I'm very proud of that because Seed Signer has been like an inspiration for me on how to conduct this project. Because also Seed Signer, although they have this DIY hardware wallet, not too many people actually build it. So you have the specifications, you have the documentation, but not too many people actually get a Raspberry Pi, 3D print their own case, their own buttons, and then they build a hardware wallet. And they prefer to buy it directly from the person who created the project. And I kind of had the same experience with the magazine, but I've learned that it's useful to collaborate, and it's a lot easier with magazines to print them. It's easier to collaborate, for example, with Pizza Day, with Paralelni Polis, to create their own version. I think it's being sold at the merchandise store for like 600 crowns, and all the proceedings go to their own project and to be able to finance more of these awesome conferences. So really, thank you, Katka. And also Katka, she's looking for the copy number 29, because it's her lucky number. So if you happen to have it, she wants to exchange you something, like another copy, which is a different number, and I don't know. And this is something else about the project, because the ones that I touched, I signed them and I numbered them. Because I want every copy that was printed to be unique in its own way, and maybe it can gain value on collectors' markets. Obviously, the open source version that anyone can print is not going to have any collector's value. But if I numbered it, I guess people are going to remember it more fondly and possibly develop a market, which then again is beyond my control. I've seen the madness that happened with NFTs in the last couple of years, so I would not be surprised. Like there's Citadel 21, a different magazine, and they have their first issue, which was only printed in 1,000 copies, and that one can go for up to $1,000 on secondary markets. So yeah, you know, it's supply and demand. This is what the first magazine looked like, and I tried to replicate a Pink Floyd album cover. I'm not sure if you know Uma Guma, which is their 1970 album, where they have this Droste effect with a picture within a picture, which is different each time you zoom into it. I thought it was cool. I'm not sure what you think about it, but anyway. I did this for all of 2021 and delivered almost 500 copies. And this year I'm collaborating much more with events and venues to be able to not just print them at home and deliver them worldwide, to print them on location and have them being distributed to all the people who participate and might be interested in accessing the content. So I did 8 different versions of the same cover, and each one of them has a different supply, had a different occasion for which it was created. There is the second one there, which has the Bit Refill logo, because they gave me money to print them and send them to a Bit Refill team building event. So Sergey, I'm not sure if he is here, but thank you. I think he's outside. And yeah, right now you can print this and distribute it, and you can modify it and do whatever. And part of this brief history, which sorry, I pressed something here. So this is the second edition for 2022, sorry. This is gonna be distributed all year, or year long, and my plan for it is to have it translated into Spanish and French. For Spanish, I think it will be in August that Surfing Bitcoin, which is another conference, takes place. And for that event, I think we're gonna do like 50 copies in French, and from there on, the community can take it and do whatever they want with it to educate locally. And also, I want for the El Salvador conference, which takes place in November, I think, this year, which is called Adopting Bitcoin, to have an edition that's gonna be 100% in Spanish, because I feel like there's a huge language barrier. It's easy for us to create content that's only in English. It's easy for us to have debate within this narrow circle, but there's a huge world out there which doesn't speak English and has nothing to do with what we're talking about, and they're at a lower level in terms of understanding. And I feel like this is a disadvantage because it's ridiculous to ask them to learn English just to get into Bitcoin. Not all wallets are translated, not all educational materials are translated, and the fact that this is an open source project attracted some attention from community members. Maybe that they're not, they all have their self-interest. So the guy who translates the Spanish version and has translated like 80% of the articles and they're on the Bitcoin Takeover website, he is interested in getting a job in the field. And he's gonna present these articles that he translated as part of his resume to get hired by CoinDesk or Cointelegraph or whichever publication has a version in Spanish, which I think is very legit, and that's why people contribute to open source, because they want to acquire experience and they want to also get known for doing something, to get out there, to have some sort of work which they can present to a potential employer, not employee. So yeah, this is what I have to say about this. This year's edition I delivered like 300 copies, I think, up to this point, to people around the world. This is Fartface 2000. I'm not sure if you know Fartface, but he was the second recipient of the Lightning Torch. Actually, the first one who got it from Hodlonaut in 2019, if you were around at the time. And he's from New Jersey in the USA, and he got his copy last week. I just presented this screenshot because I make 2 volumes for this magazine. The second one is not available because it's not very relevant for this occasion. The second one is actually a history of my podcast with QR codes that you can scan to listen to a specific episode. I did that. I did not ask Paralelni Polis to do that because, it's not very efficient in terms of resources. It's better to just have the educational content. Not that my podcasts are not educational, but you get the point. And I also have some famous hodlers that I wanted to mention. For the first edition of last year, I had Peter Todd and Amir Taki, Thomas Vogtlin from Electrum, Joshua Shigala from Voltoro, and I'm very grateful to him because he sponsored me to do the first edition. So there would be no open source magazine without him. John Carvalho, who right now is the CEO of Synonym. There's Keto Miner, I'm not sure if he is here, but he was outside. And also Slush. We don't have Slush, but we have Stick, and he's also outside. The second edition had Giacomo Zucco, the entire Bit Refill stuff. The third edition had Hodlonaut, Vizik, and Cripsy, and they are artists who do a lot of graphical work. And you get the point. I'm very proud about the 5th edition, which had Peter, Willie, Jimmy Song, Steve Signer, and Justin Wales. Justin Wales is a First Amendment lawyer from the United States who wrote a very interesting academic paper about Bitcoin being free speech that should be protected by the US Constitution, because Bitcoin is code and code is free speech, and he presents interesting arguments that are very compelling about why the US should never ban Bitcoin and protect it instead. So why did I work on a magazine? Because I was not happy with the quality of other magazines that I saw. At the time when I started working on the first one in June of 2021, Bitcoin Magazine was not publishing yet. They had their last issue in 2019, and they had announced their next one with the El Salvador cover, I think a couple of months later. And I liked Citadel 21, but I was not content with the quality of the print, because they put a lot of effort into the graphics, but they never really, deliver it on high quality paper because they want to keep the production cost very low. So I wanted to do something which was uncompromising according to my own understanding of what a magazine should be like. When you hold a magazine in your hands, it should be something that you feel is precious and which demands attention, that you want to keep in your collection. Even if you don't like the content, you want to either keep it in your bookshelf or on your coffee table or give it to someone else, not something which feels like a leaflet that you can just throw away because it's so low quality. And I think that magazines are friendlier than books. I slept like 3 hours last night, so I'll have to read it, so sorry for not being able to memorize. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, that open source, for lack of a better word, is good. Open source is right. Open source works. Open source clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of evolutionary spirit. Open source, in all of its forms, open source software, open source hardware, open source magazines, open source knowledge has marked the upward surge of mankind. Thank you.
So thank you, Vlad, for the presentation. Do you have any questions now?
Where's my number 29?
That's the question, big one. Question 29. Okay, if there's no questions, so thank you and see you in 40 minutes here for another talk with Amir. Thank you.